Hello? Who's there? Doesn't that make you think about somebody who's at the door and you have to go to the door and check? Don't want to let in just a stranger in. So you go over to the door and you look out. Oh, it's your best friend. And you open up the door wide and invite them in, and they come just tumbling into your house. But you know what? That same door is there to keep things out too. If you hear that and you go to the door and you don't recognize that person, you don't open the door, do you? So come with me on a little tour. I'm going to show you a couple ways into my property and into my house as we get started talking about the cell membrane today. I'm standing here in front of this gate, and it allows people to go from this yard into that yard, which is where the swimming pool is. I can go through the gate. The dogs can go through the gate. I could even probably take a horse through the gate, and believe it or not, if we need to, we can take the tractor through the gate. Come with me and I'm going to show you another place that can allow things in and out. So this is my door. It allows things in and out. I can go in and out. Soldier can go in and out, right? So come on in. Hi. Uh-oh, the dog is upstairs. Could we take care of that first? Here's another way into my house. It's really hot and smoky, so we have it open because it's hot. But the smoke is coming in. But you notice I don't go in and out of this opening. And my dog doesn't go in and out of this opening. But if I was to take the screen out, then we probably could, couldn't we? The screen, though, allows things like the cool breeze to come in, but it lets the smoke in, right? I can close the window, and I've made the decision now to have my home enclosed. Now you can't come through the window, you can't come through the door, and you can't come into my home. I'm making that decision. When it gets too hot, I just open up a window, right? And now I'm letting cool air back in. There are parts in the cell that are organelles whose job it is to do this sort of a thing. The cell membrane lets things in and out of the cell. And it has proteins. The proteins actually act like border patrol agents, deciding what gets to come in and what gets to go out. Just like me deciding to close or open my window. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that little tour of my home and seeing the ways into my house and enjoying the fact that, Soldier can get in. As well as us. Anyways, so I wanted to just talk a little bit about that cell membrane as we look forward to our lab on Friday. In our lab, we're going to be looking very closely at how the cell membrane allows things in and out of the cell. So the cell membrane is an amazing organelle that has a very important job. It must keep things in the cell that the cell needs to keep in it, and it must keep things out of the cell that could kill or damage the cell. And it needs to send things the cell makes for the rest of the body to go out. The cell has many different ways to do this. Just like the screen on your window lets in the air, but not the bugs, the cell membrane can do a similar thing for the cell. And just like you can open your door and let the dog in, the cell has places to let bigger things in and out. And just as when someone knocks on your door, you check to see who is there before you open the door, your cell has special proteins on the membrane that check to see if the door should be open to whatever is out there knocking. I like to think of these special proteins as gatekeepers because they decide when to open and let something in or out of the cell. If they decide that something should be let in, they can actually open up the cell membrane and let the item in. Or they can refuse to let the item in, no matter how hard it knocks. Did you know that God has given you a mind that works much like the cell membrane of the cell? But you are like the gatekeeper protein on the cell that must determine whether or not to let something in or not, and whether to keep something in or to send it out. If the cell was to let the wrong thing into the cell, it could kill the cell. And did you know that the thoughts you let into your mind can eventually do the same thing to you? Our thoughts can help us grow and learn and find peace and joy in our lives. But our thoughts can also cause us to be sad and angry and can even make us bitter towards other people, towards God, and even towards ourselves. In this way, our thoughts have the power to destroy relationships we have with other people, or even destroy the relationship we have with God, and can even cause us to hurt ourselves. So our thoughts need a gatekeeper to allow the right thoughts in and keep the bad thoughts out. Let's start with talking about thoughts that need to be kept out. The wrong thoughts we have. What kind of wrong thoughts are there? Well, there's thoughts about other people or myself that cause us to not value or honor them as being made in God's image. Putting others down or putting myself down. Mean thoughts, hateful thoughts, selfish thoughts, lazy thoughts, even prideful thoughts. Thoughts about God that do not honor Him as God, or thoughts that misrepresent Him as being God. Thoughts that God isn't real, or He doesn't care, or He doesn't really love me or someone else. Things like that. In fact, you could say our thoughts are like a battlefield where we are under attack at all times. Bad thoughts can come into our minds with the intention to destroy us, or our relationships with others, or even destroy our relationship with God. So we need to handle these bad thoughts as if we were truly on the battlefield fighting against them. The Bible actually uses this kind of language too to help us combat these bad thoughts. It says in 2 Corinthians 10:5 what we need to do. It says this, it says, "We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." I love that verse, and it's one of the verses that I have memorized, and I say it many, many times when thoughts come into my mind that I know are not appropriate. Imagine attacking these bad thoughts by demolishing, which means to destroy completely, take it apart, all the arguments and any thought that goes against our God. Then we are to take captive those thoughts in order to make them obedient to God. Next, let's talk about the right kind of thoughts. How can we be gatekeepers that let in the right kind of thoughts? We can see what kind of thoughts we should let in when we look at Philippians 4:8. Whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. So when a thought pops into your mind, remember to be the gatekeeper and ask yourself, is this thought the right kind of thought I should be letting into my mind? Then go through the list. You can do it like this. You can think, is this thought I'm thinking about right now, is it true? Is it right? Is it pure? Is it lovely? Is it admirable? Is it excellent? Is it praiseworthy? If so, open the gate and let those thoughts in, and then shut the gate and keep them there as long as you possibly can. If not, do not open the gate to that thought. Instead, ask God to help you replace it with a good thought. In this way, you'll become a better gatekeeper, and you'll see your mind growing healthy and full of the joys of life, even in the midst of times that are hard. Let me tell you a little story about a young lady named Betsy. Betsy grew up in a time when a very evil man named Hitler was the ruler of her country. Hitler decided he was going to kill thousands of people just because of their race. The people he hated were Jews. Betsy's family, even though they weren't Jews, they knew that it was wrong to kill Jews, and they hid many Jewish people from Hitler and his army. Until one day they found out that Betsy's family was actually hiding the Jews, and they arrested the entire family and threw them into a concentration camp, which was like prison. Betsy and her sister Corey were put into a terrible, crowded, dungeon-like place called a barrack, and it was a terrible place. People were sick, and they were very hungry because they were barely given enough food to keep them alive so that they could work for really long hours. And they were beaten all the time and given no medical help. Many of the people fought with each other at night because they were so crowded and there was nowhere to sleep or walk without stepping on people, and that would make people mad. And they couldn't sleep because, well, the women in all their beds were covered in fleas that would bite them, and it was just impossible to sleep. So people were crabby and tired and sick, and just they were so mean to each other. But Betsy and her sister were able to smuggle a Bible in with them when they were taken captive. Every night after the long days of work and abuse, they would be taken back to the barracks to try to rest. And Betsy and her sister would take out the Bible, read some of it, sing and pray together. Soon, many of the other women would come and join them, and the fighting stopped. The women began to actually love one another, taking care of each other's needs, and even found laughter and joy in the midst of their horrible circumstances. One night, Betsy got very, very sick, and her sister Corey was desperate and losing hope. Betsy reminded her to pray and to keep taking captive her thoughts. thinking about things that are true, right, lovely, pure, and praiseworthy. She and Corey began to thank God for as many things as they could thank him for. And soon, Betsy softly said, "I thank you, Jesus, for the fleas." Corey was shocked. How could Betsy be thankful for the fleas? It wasn't until years later, when Corey was released, that she found out why they could be thankful for the fleas. You see, the guards knew the barracks were covered in fleas, and so they refused to ever go in for any reason, not even to search for things the women weren't allowed to have. You see, if the guards had searched the barracks, they would have found the Bible. The Bible was what had given the women hope and the ability to love one another and find joy even in the midst of terrible suffering. This story can help us remember to take captive every single thought and make them obedient to Christ, just as the cell membrane can help us remember to do the same thing. Isn't God's creation so amazing? How we can learn about Him as we study it? I thank Him for those who have gone on before us and given us examples how we can be good gatekeepers of our mind.